Hi guys, my name's Meher. Welcome back to my channel. And I've decided that our first course that I'm going to start uploading for is AP Environmental Science. So this series of videos should hopefully get done before your AP exam so that way you can review beforehand. So we're going to start off with topic 1.1 today, which is our introduction to ecosystems. So let's get started. So let's start off with what is an ecosystem? So an ecosystem is a location on Earth with interacting biotic and abiotic components. A biotic component is a living part of the ecosystem. These are all of your living organisms, everything from animals, plants, bacteria, fungi. An abiotic component is a non-living part of the ecosystem. So let's look at our left side for now. So our left side, we have a very pretty leaf and a cat who is unfortunately going through some stress issues. Both of those are living organisms and therefore are considered biotic. Now, on the right hand side, we have some clouds, so that could mean the weather, the wind. I don't know what was going through my mind when I put them there, but let's just say they're wind because I have a heat warning right beneath it, and that's obviously weather. So, abiotic factors are non living parts that directly affect the ecosystem. So some good examples to know for your abiotic factors is your soil, your sunlight, temperature, wind, water, rocks. Honestly, there's just a lot of stuff. Weather, climate. So let's go into what the biosphere is. The biosphere is a combination of all the ecosystems. And these ecosystems can be found in terrestrial, aquatic, and atmospheric environments. So, in case you don't know what that means, terrestrial is earth-based, aquatic is your oceans, your rivers, and then atmospheric is in the atmosphere, which is kind of like the layers revolving the earth of space. So, everything from the sky and up. So, ecosystems can be of any size, anything from a pond to a jungle, but really it can go a lot smaller and be a lot bigger than that. So, almost everything's an ecosystem. Technically, you're an ecosystem. You have lots of gut bacteria in you that are working together to maintain your body. So, this is a really important topic for you guys to understand, which is your ecological levels. You're going to be using this all throughout your course. So, we're going to start off, and I'm going to keep reading off the parts in the paragraph, and make sure you match them with the pictures off to the side. So, let's start off with what an individual is. An individual is one singular organism. So we see that Dory over there, I think it's called a blue tang. I'm not sure. I should have looked at that before I recorded, but we're going to name her Dory. Dory is living by herself, and we don't count the water, the temperature, sunlight around her. No, an individual is just Dory. Now, a population is a group of individuals of the same species. So those are all of your fish over there. We're still not counting any of the abiotic factors, but we're counting all of those fish as long as they're the same species. Next, we're at a community. A community is all of the biotic living organisms in an area. So you see jellyfish, coral, two dories, a manta ray, and I should have added some plants in there, but I forgot to do that. But it's okay. And next, we have an ecosystem. So an ecosystem has all of the abiotic factors as well as the biotic factors. So we've seen that ecosystem, now we would count the rocks, we would count the water, we'd count the temperature, we'd count the sunlight going through. And lastly, we have a biome. So a biome is a region of unique climate, plants, and animals. So all of these that we had before were based on abiotic and biotic factors. But a biome is our first kind of area where instead of being based on what's part of it, it's based on what makes it. It's based on the climate, the weather, the constant temperature of the area, the number of plants, the types of plants, and the types of animals that live there. So some examples could be a grassland, a tropical rainforest, a desert. Over there, I have an aquatic biome with a little rock on top of it, the very cool looking crop. But yeah, and then the biosphere, we talked about that on our previous slide. So that plant over there, we use Dory as an example, but plants can be count as individuals as well. So just know that it's any organism, and organisms are any living animal or object, I should say, not animal. Plants, animals, bacteria, and fungi. Okay, let's go into our next slide, which is symbiosis. So symbiosis is symbiotic relationships. Well, I mean, it isn't, but let me rephrase that. Symbiosis can be represented through symbiotic relationships, which contain two different organisms interacting. Symbiosis is the interaction between two different organisms. Now, we can split that up in three ways. Our first way is mutualism. So off to the side, you see that bee with the flowers. Both of them are benefiting in that scenario. The bee is getting food from the flowers, and the flowers are spreading their pollen through the bee. In this scenario, mutualism, both benefit. Next is commensalism. In commensalism, one benefits and one is unaffected. I don't have an example of here, a visual, but you can imagine just a tree with a bird's nest on it. The bird's nest is getting shelter from the tree, but the tree is neither harmed nor benefited. Next is parasitism. Parasitism is where one benefits at the other's expense. If that beetle off to our right is digging into the tree, eating all the bark, eating the inside, that's very beneficial for the beetle. It's getting food, it's getting resources, but the tree is being harmed in this scenario. So parasitism is where one benefits at the other's expense. And another key thing that you can realize, a pattern between all three of these, is that in symbiotic relationships, one is always benefiting. Okay, next let's talk about predation. So predation is where one animal will kill and consume the other. And the key thing to remember here is actually the word animal. That's why we're going to talk about herbivores for a second. So herbivores are not true predators. Yes, that caterpillar over there is about to eat all the apples in that bush, but since they aren't animals, the apples aren't animals, this is technically not a case of predation. So you need to remember, herbivorism, yes, they're technically eating, but it doesn't count as predation. Now, true predators are carnivores. So that's our example off to the left where we have that bird sneaking in, trying diving, and going to kill and eat the snail. So, there are a few other parts that we need to talk about. First is parasites. Parasites feed off the host for energy. So some examples of these would be tapeworms, which are a type of worm in your digestive system. Well, hopefully they're not in your digestive system, but that's where they'll go and they'll take out nutrients. Next is a mosquito, and if you don't know what a mosquito is, I really want to be you. And lastly, we have the lamprey. So a lamprey is a fish in the ocean. Well, I mean, I guess all fish are, or most of them. That has a bunch of teeth and it'll latch on to an animal and basically suck the blood and the nutrients out of that animal, feeding itself. Last thing that we have to talk about is parasitoids. So parasitoids are organisms that lay eggs inside the host organism. So the important thing to know here is that it isn't the organism that laid the eggs that's doing the harmful thing. It's the larvae and the eggs. After they hatch, they feed off of the host organism for energy. So some examples here would be the parasitic wasp and the botfly. Next, let's talk about how prey have developed defenses. So there are three main ways that prey have developed defenses. We can categorize them that way at least. The first way is behavioral. If you look off to the left, the fish are all grouping together. So behavioral defenses are action-based. This could be grouping up, which is another word for schooling. So remember, that's what you need to know. Schooling is usually used in terms of fish, and schooling just means grouping up. Let's continue hiding and running away. Another important example that you should know is that sometimes animals will signal other animals to hide when they spot predators. This is also a behavioral defense because it's action-based. Next, we can talk about morphological defenses, which are structure-based. On the right, we have that beetle over there. That beetle has some strong exoskeleton, and maybe if it was hiding in a wheat field, it could be camouflaged in. So your morphological defenses are structural based that include scales, camouflage, armor, and mimicry. Lastly, we have chemical defenses. Chemical defenses are substance based. So these include toxins and odors. The odors, obviously, you're repelling any predators that want to come eat you because you smell bad. And then toxins are when if the predator eats you, they're going to get a bad taste in their mouth or they're going to realize that you're unhealthy and not target the rest of your species. So next is a really important topic. That's going to be competition. So competition is when organisms fight over the same resource. That's all competition is. But what you need to know is this leads to a long loss of life, a large amount of loss of life. So there are 4 ways that we can try and reduce competition. Our first way that I need to know is resource partitioning. This is how we split up how resources are used. So if you look at the right, our ladybug is eating the lighter shade of grass and the dragonfly is eating the darker shade of grass. They're both using the same resource, but since they're using different parts, they aren't getting in the way of each other and causing competition. Next is temporal partitioning. Temporal partitioning is when you use resources at different times. This allows for the person who's using the resources at the daytime to use those resources, let them replenish, and then during the night someone else can use them. Our third way is spatial partitioning. This is when we use different areas to spread out resources. If everyone wants to eat carrots, there are 40 different types of bunnies. Then we'll put some carrots in the grassland so those bunnies can have their carrots, put some in the plains, and just etc. Keep spreading them out so that way we can reduce the amount of competition for that resource. Lastly, we have morphological partitioning, which is when we use different resources due to body structure. So that also reduces competition. Now, we still need to know a little bit more about competition. So, usually, species develop a niche or a specialized role in order to survive competition. So this is how and why resource partitioning occurs. Only after gaining a niche do you allow for more resources to be split up. Evolution favors those organisms which have their own niche. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If there's something that only you can do and no one else can do, then you'll be around for a lot longer than someone who has the same skill as, say, 30 other animals. This is the process of natural selection, and all organisms undergo this process. So over on the side, we have that green plant, and let's say it was in a field of lavenders. So it was really easy to spot out, and it was getting eaten out first. So that green plant may soon evolve. It'll have maybe a few plants have a mutation where their leaves turn purple, and those plants will obviously have an easier time living because they're better camouflaged, and soon the plant species will evolve to be mostly purple. Lastly, we need to talk about keystone species. So keystone species are species that play a large role in keeping an ecosystem stable. So on the left-hand side, we have the sea otter. Sea otters feed on sea urchins and therefore are needed to preserve kelp forests. Most animals don't eat on sea urchins, so sea otters are usually really helpful and are largely responsible to preserving kelp forests, making them a keystone species. Now, a type of keystone species that you need to know is ecosystem engineers, or well, are ecosystem engineers. So you can see that beautiful beaver face grinning at you right now, and the beaver is a great example of an ecosystem engineer. These are keystone species that create or maintain habitats for other species. You've probably seen beaver law putting down logs to make dams. These are their own habitats that other species can use, and they consistently maintain them, allowing other species to live in their made habitats. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. There'll be more resources on the way. I don't have a video posting schedule, but just know that there'll be a lot more coming your way soon. Thank you so much. I hope this helped in any way, shape, or form. And yes, just please drop down a comment. If you have any questions left, I can just reach out to you and explain at a later time. Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.